Hello and welcome to episode 1 of Fresh Content Society's Social Media Managers Are People Too podcast, the go-to podcast for all social media managers to get more insights, strategies, do's, don'ts, plus much more. If you've ever find yourself laughing at hilarious exchanges between two brands on Twitter, well, those conversations are all thanks to social media managers. On this show, we're going to put the spotlight on these social media managers and give them a chance to show off the person behind the brand. I'm Scott, founder and owner of Fresh Content Society, a boutique social media agency specializing in organic and paid growth for small businesses and global brands. Our goal today is not only to put a spotlight on social media managers, but to help connect and give back to our industry by sharing knowledge, insights, and best practices. Today, we have Anthony Yepez from New York. What's up, Anthony?
Hey, what's going on?
So Anthony previously managed the Spartan Race social media channels and is currently a free agent looking to take a brand to the next level. And I'm excited to hear more about what your journey looks like. So Anthony, thanks for joining us and being the first guest.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thanks so much. I know we've been talking on Twitter for the past couple of weeks, if not months, during this whole quarantine lockdown situation. And it's been great to connect with yourself and other social media pros around the world. The community on Twitter has been phenomenal, and having opportunities like this, I think it's a great thing to have because it's a great way to network and connect, obviously, but also, a great way to learn and kind of gain insights from, people from all different types of industries, but, all doing social, which, obviously we all can relate to. So excited to be here.
Yeah, this is kind of the first time, that people can kind of see how a relationship can start on Twitter, and then kind of go into a virtual setting and just keep building from there. So I totally agree. So Anthony, let's start from the ground level. So how did you get into the social media industry?
Oh man, so that's actually pretty funny. So in college, I just somehow became a nightclub promoter, spring break promoter. I played sports. I went to Hofstra University in Long Island, New York. So I was always around a lot of people, very social. I worked at the bars, off campus, and, I joined a fraternity eventually. So very outgoing. I loved nightlife. I loved music. And I got an opportunity to just work in New York City as a nightclub promoter. And obviously, nightclubs and promotions, especially at that time, this is back in like 2005-ish, it was all about, your network and who you knew, and how many people you could bring out to a nightclub or how many people you could bring on spring break. So I looked at social media as the perfect way for me to build my network. And back in those early days, the whole algorithm and things like that were not a factor yet. So, I was really able to focus on Facebook and MySpace, specifically to build a network and help, build my career as a nightclub promoter. And that was pretty much the thing that got me hooked onto social media, being able to see how I can connect with people, in New York, around the country. And eventually I started doing events in Miami and Chicago and so on. And it was just really cool for me. And it really fit my personality on how I can network, with people with similar interests. And it really helped me build my personal brand and aided in something that I, at that time, did not know would become a career, but something kind of that laid the path for me, and was a very start for me in social.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like in your DNA to promote things, and it's all about really community at the end of the day. So no, that makes sense. Okay, great. So what's one thing every social media manager should know?
One thing every social media manager should know is that I think it's kind of two-part. One, that social media is supposed to be social, and our job is to connect people with interests around a common, interest, like I said before. And at the end of the day, people can really understand whether or not you're being authentic or not. So, you got to really understand who you're talking to. You got to understand the brand that you're behind and that you're working, and how that brand relates to the interest or the pain points that they have, and then how are you as a social media manager for that brand going to create or source content that's going to speak to those interests or those pain points. At the end of the day, if you're able to achieve only that, you're headed in the right direction.
Right. Totally agree. All right, let's transition.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite brand on Twitter?
Favorite brand? I get this question a lot, and I hate to say that I have one particular favorite brand, because I don't. I gravitate towards brands who build authentic communities, and people that really understand the value of social media. And it ranges from personalities, people like Gary Vee, to sport teams. I think the NFL and the MLB and the social teams there do a phenomenal job, to your food and beverage brands, to your big, Amazon type brands. And, one brand that sticks out to me a lot is the team over at Square. I love what they do as far as really connecting with their community of vendors who utilize their platform, especially now during this time and how, crazy things are. Just really showcasing the people behind the product and the service. And I think anyone who's able to really do that truly understands that social media is about the community. It's about the people. It's about the stories that they have and the reason why they're connected to your brand. So anyone who's doing that really, has my call, if you want to, seal of approval, and has me as a follower.
Right. Yeah. At the end of the day, if you're not building community, what is the point of being on social media? Totally agree.
Yeah. And it's crazy because, a lot of people will say, well, hey, look at these meme accounts, or look at these, these fitness models, or whoever it may be. They have millions of followers. They have tremendous value, and they definitely do, to some extent. But I think that, in the long-term scope of things, those that have a true community that's very engaged, with a purpose, that's a very strong social account.
Right. It's what I think what needs to be noted is that doing that is not easy to do.
No.
It's very hard to do.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So what is the biggest challenge a social media manager currently faces? What's your biggest challenge that you face? I mean, outside of being in the market, being in the channels, what's the biggest hurdle?
I would say that, I think resources is one, and getting leadership to buy into, properly staffing a social media team. And I think a lot of people, especially in the world of Twitter and social media manager community, state that they're a team of one. And I think that's incredibly hard for anyone, regardless if you have 5 years experience or 10 plus like you and I do. It's very hard to manage a brand account by yourself. You need at least 3-4 people. You need a copywriter, you need an editor, you need a graphic designer, you need a strategist, a community manager. And I think I just named 5 people right off the bat,
right?
Regardless of the size of your brand. So I think that's a major struggle and pain point that we have as social media managers. And I would say another one, which I speak a lot about on Twitter, is just the overall perception of social media and those that manage accounts for brands. That term of, oh, was that a tweet from the intern, or, that those type of things that are just very well known within our world. And, it's very unfortunate, because I think there's an extremely amount of talented people that are social media managers and directors and senior managers and things like that. And, sooner than later, we need to have that seat at the table, and we need to earn that respect, because I know you see it a lot. Social media managers are not just, one trick ponies. We have to be skilled and versed in every single aspect of social media and marketing as a whole, from PR to, customer service to sponsorship, you name it, and graphic design, video editing, everything that you can think of from a marketing standpoint. We need to be able to be skilled at that. And, I think because of how young social media is, and, some of the stereotypes that are out there, call it, movies or documentaries that come out, and sometimes how social media is portrayed, it doesn't help our case. But I think this year, with how negative it's been, the one positive side is how vocal social media managers have become, especially on platforms like Twitter and LinkedIn, and how we're kind of like really putting our foot down and saying, hey, like we are professionals, we are very talented, we deserve a larger voice, and we deserve a seat at the table. And eventually, I think within the next couple of years, if not sooner, you'll see more social pros stepping into the CMO role, and maybe developing a new C-suite position as maybe, chief social officer or something like that, because I think it's more evident now than ever that the social media manager is very important to the reputation and the growth of any business that's out there.
Completely agree, and completely undervalued still, which is absurd. But it makes a little sense because the industry is still so new, right?
Yeah.
And people are still finding that, especially with the pandemic, it accelerated, digital and social by like 10 years, essentially.
Okay.
Not everybody's like, oh, I should be on social media. Where it's before, even a little bit like before March, people would still like teeter-totter on, I guess I should be on it, I guess I not should be on it. But I think, we're getting into a place where everybody knows they should be in it. So moving on, what is your favorite social media management tool and why?
There's a lot of tools out there for us. So I think if we're talking, strictly content management and scheduling and analytics, I'm a big fan of Sprout Social. This is not an ad for them. I'm not sponsored by Sprout Social. But I did work with them for the past 4 years while at my previous company. And I think the platform progressed over time, and they are a team of social media professionals who built a social platform for social media professionals. So with that being the case, they really understood, the pain points that we dealt with on a day-to-day basis. And, from managing content to sourcing content to scheduling and analytics, I thought, that was probably one of the strongest platforms that I ever used.
Yeah, we use Sprout too. But they should sponsor this, by the way.
Hey, I think we know a few people. We'll make that happen.
Okay, cool. All right, so 2 more questions. Give us your number 1 tip to generate engagement. I mean, you alluded earlier to it's about community, and it's about that sort of dialogue between brand and channel. What would be the 1 tip? I mean, there's probably 20 of them that you can give, but what's the 1 tip that you can give to people that are looking to help build more, comments, likes, shares on their post organically?
Yeah, I mean, I would say first and foremost, know your audience and how they behave on social as it relates to the product or service that you provide, that your brand provides. And once you have that down, you're able to go and navigate where they are, where they're populating, and whatever social channel that is, really understand how they behave, and try to develop content that is very closely aligned to that, but obviously it's still relevant to your brand. And speak to them, not speak at them, and speak with them, 100%, and you got to speak with them and make them understand that, hey, behind this account, there's another human being that, walks, talks, and acts just like you, and definitely understands where you're coming from. I feel like a lot of people become robotic in a sense, and become too much on the brand side. You just have to still be human and just ultimately give people what they need, not what you want them to have.
Right. No, brilliant. Okay, perfect. So last question. If you can give an up-and-coming social media manager advice, what would it be?
Find your passion, within social, and, what industry you're the most passionate about. And, once you have that established, really network your tail off, and be willing to, try new things out, be willing to show your value and show your worth, because it will be hard in the beginning. There's a lot of social media managers out there, and it's a great community, but it's also very competitive. So you have to showcase your skills. You have to showcase your talent. And, if you're just starting out, obviously it's a little bit harder, but you have your own social, and you can utilize your own platforms to showcase how you're able to create content, how you're able to start conversations on Twitter, how you're able to adapt new features like, fleets and everything else that's coming out. So just really put yourself out there, put your knowledge to the test, and network and just create content. I think that's trial by error is your best friend, especially in the early stages.
Well said. Well said. Well, Anthony, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking some time to share your wealth of knowledge, insights, and some of your tips. I think that's the most beneficial is, people can actually take something back tangible, with this interview and be able to, implement it into their day-to-day strategies and get your perspective, which a lot of people don't, get other people's perspective all the time because, we think everything's a secret almost in the agency world. And I don't think it has to be, because it's not rocket science, because it's specific to your community, whether that's on a national scale or whether it's on a local scale. So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And then we'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.